Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Ileana Rodriguez, Assistant County Executive. We're here to provide a recap of the actions the board took moments ago regarding the independent investigation into the Sheriff's Office. You'll hear from Supervisor Noelia Corzo and Supervisor Ray Mueller, followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions. Supervisor Mueller?
Good evening. This afternoon, the Board of Supervisors has taken the unprecedented step of voting for two resolutions to take the following actions following the independent investigation by Judge Ladoris Cordell, which sustained 12 of 15 allegations against Sheriff Christina Corpus and her Executive Director, Victor Ange. Number one, abolishing the job classification of the Sheriff's Executive Director of Administration, unclassified, and removing the salary for the position. Number two, taking a position of no confidence in Sheriff Christina Corpus and calling on her to resign. Number three, directing transmittal of the investigation by Judge Ladoris Cordell to the San Mateo County District Attorney, the California Attorney General, and other local governmental agencies, as well as the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury. Number four, affirming authorization to release the report of the independent investigation. Number five, directing staff to prepare an ordinance to place on the San Mateo County vote. I'll start that one over. Number five, directing staff to prepare an ordinance to place before the San Mateo County voters an amendment to the San Mateo County Charter to allow removal of the sheriff by the Board of Supervisors upon a finding of good cause. The board takes no pleasure in these actions. When Sheriff Corpus was elected, we shared her optimism for positive change within the sheriff's office. However, her leadership has led to an exodus of dedicated, experienced, and highly competent staff, and has severely damaged morale within the department she oversees, impacting public safety. While she may consider herself a disruptor, her actions have brought destruction. Sheriff Corpus has called the investigation a witch hunt. That premise of a witch hunt is someone looking for something that does not exist. This was no witch hunt. Numerous complaints from within the sheriff's office came in through the county human resources and a whistleblower hotline. The Board of Supervisors did not invent this crisis. We exercised our duty to investigate those whistleblower complaints and to provide oversight to the sheriff's office. To do so, County Counsel John Niblin tasked Judge Cordell with conducting this investigation. As one of the foremost authorities on law enforcement and esteemed throughout the Bay Area, Judge Cordell's qualifications are beyond reproach. And simply put, with no links to the parties involved in this matter, if she is not objective, no one is. I'm going to go ahead and turn the conference over to Supervisor Corzo.
Judge Cordell's independent investigation sustained 12 of 15 allegations. Allegations so grave that we, the Board of Supervisors, were compelled to take the action we took today. To quote from Judge Cordell's report, nothing short of new leadership can save this organization. It would be negligent of our board to not take action to not act on such a damning statement backed by the disturbing findings of Judge Cordell's investigation. At the heart of this matter is the fact that Sheriff Corpus hired Victor Ange as an executive director of administration, someone with who it has been established she has an ongoing personal relationship with beyond mere friendship. She hired him at nearly a $250,000 salary, equivalent to that of an assistant sheriff, and she repeatedly requested further salary increases. According to the independent investigation, this high salary position was neither posted nor open to other candidates. And Mr. Anye has been deemed by Judge Cordell as unqualified for senior leadership in a law enforcement agency. Despite this, he wore a badge resembling that of a sworn officer, exercised authority beyond his role, and abused his position through intimidation and retaliation. The hiring of Mr. Anye was not only in direct violation of county and sheriff's office policy, but it also created a toxic, destructive environment, leading to the departure of over 100 employees, including senior law enforcement leaders handpicked by Sheriff Corpus from outside the agency. We must also emphasize that the sustained allegations of racial and homophobic slurs against the sheriff are reprehensible and stand in direct opposition to the values of our Board of Supervisors and the county we represent. And alarmingly, even though it was known that the independent investigation by Judge Cordell was underway, the culture of intimidation and retaliation under the leadership of Sheriff Corpus has continued. Again, just yesterday, the arrest of the Sheriff Deputy Association President Carlos Tapia by the Sheriff's Office was a direct violation of their own policy, which prohibits criminal investigation of a member of their own agency. It is with the utmost gravity that we call on Sheriff Corpus to resign. We also call on the sheriff to honor the mandate in the county ordinance that individuals who participate in investigations like these are not retaliated against. Any retaliation that occurs will be addressed through legal channels. To the members of the Sheriff's Office, thank you for your continued service through very challenging times. We hope that you know your concerns have been heard. Thank you. We'll now answer questions.
So you mentioned that you did reach out to Christina because she had said that you hadn't reached out previously. Do you mind telling me like what form you reached out in and how that kind of how that went down?
The last attempt that I made to directly communicate with the sheriff, and again, I want to state that it's tricky to communicate with someone when there's an active investigation going on. But when she held her press conference on September 22nd, I called her before that press conference was held. I sent her a text message saying I wanted to hear her side, that I cared about her. I left her a voicemail. I never heard back, and I chose to not continue to reach out after that point.
I just wanted to ask what was going through your minds that moment where either of you can or if you want to answer what was going through your minds when Sheriff Corpus announced that she wanted to or she was intending to promote Anye to assistant sheriff, and when she walked out refusing to submit a sworn testimony, what were you thinking at that moment?
I think when you're in a situation like this, the most important thing that you want to discover are the facts. Right now, we have a duty as a board to uncover those facts, to share them with the public, and to share them with the appropriate authorities. So in that moment that we saw Sheriff Corpus today, I was focused on just trying to get her to agree to provide sworn testimony so that we can uncover facts and also hold her accountable to the statements that she continues to make to the public, that they be truthful and accurate.
I was surprised, disappointed, and honestly just in awe that the practice of continuing to try to promote this man, despite the sustained allegations, is continuing, and that she does it in public.
Can you provide a little bit of clarification when it comes to what you decided with that second resolution? Did you essentially terminate that position, and what effect did the sheriff coming in and appointing Anye as assistant sheriff have on that? Can you provide clarification on that? Because is he not in that position? Did what you guys vote for in that resolution have an impact at all?
Yeah, the net effect is it does. So before the hearing today, before she announced his promotion to assistant sheriff, obviously if we zero out a position, zero out its budget, and eliminate the position, and he's the one in it, he would be laid off. Essentially, by her taking that proactive step today in live action before everyone, she protected him from that taking place. What's left now to the county is to go ahead and look at whether or not he actually meets the qualifications for an assistant sheriff, which frankly is in doubt, given his current status as a reserve officer and not a sworn officer, but also because the allegations contained within Judge Cordell's report, which she sustained, was that he actually doesn't even meet the qualifications for a reserve officer at this time.
I'll add to that and say that from my understanding, his position has been eliminated. I don't believe he's qualified to be an assistant sheriff. In my view, he's no longer employed by the sheriff's office. And he's been barred from the premises.
Did the county executive bar him from being on site? I thought I heard him say that he would make a motion or sign some sort of order tomorrow that he wouldn't be allowed on the premises. Can you clarify that?
It certainly sounded like that was the intent of the county executive. If that's what he thinks he needs to do to protect the employees of San Mateo County, he is so empowered to do that. And frankly, in this circumstance, I would support him in doing so.
I'll add that, to my understanding, there are certain spaces that any member of the public is entitled to, but any space where only sworn personnel or county employees are permitted to enter, I believe that's where he will not be permitted to enter.
I have one last question. Now that the board has asked her to resign, and as far as I know, she's not going to do that, what's next? What happens now?
So now the process begins. We're leaving the cooperative stage of this investigation, which is how I would put it, where she could voluntarily cooperate with the investigation, to more of a compulsory stage. So with this matter being referred to the civil grand jury, her participation will be compulsory through subpoena. If the district attorney decides to go ahead and pick this issue up, again, her participation would be compulsory. She could always choose to take the Fifth Amendment if she wanted to, but it would be somewhat compulsory. And then finally, the third prong, which happened today, was that we directed county council to go ahead and begin a charter amendment. With that charter amendment, we will actually put in front of the voters the question of whether or not they will give the board, under certain circumstances, the authority to remove the sheriff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll add to that just to clarify. The people voted in Sheriff Corpus, and whether by a recall election or whether by an ordinance that is put on the ballot, the people have the power to remove her.
Do you not want to? Okay. Will you wait for recall efforts? Can that happen simultaneously as you going forward with a charter amendment? Is there concerns of you proceeding with a charter amendment and not leaving it up to citizens to organize a recall effort?
I don't have those concerns in either case. The public would vote on it. So a charter amendment would go before the public for a vote. A recall would go in front of the public for a vote. If the citizens of San Mateo County want to go ahead and organize a recall effort, if they feel so compelled, I support them in that effort. But I have an obligation as a supervisor on this board of supervisors in the current circumstance to pursue a charter amendment.
My question is a little bit more personal for the two of you, and perhaps Supervisor Corzo more so for you. With the sheriff's actions, how much of them do you think are coming from her versus being influenced by Mr. Anjay? Do you think she's being influenced or coerced by him to take some of the steps that she's taken the past couple of weeks and months?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
I'll say this. It's not logical to do the things that the sheriff has done. And to a certain extent, I do I do fear for her safety, emotional, physical, etc. But I can't say more than that because I don't have hard facts. But I am deeply concerned for her well-being.
And I also want to ask you guys about the kind of unprecedented nature of this happening in our county here. We kind of talked about it during the meeting, but this is really, unusual for us here in San Mateo County, right?
It's incredibly unusual. These are incredibly unusual circumstances, but I think unusual circumstances require a swift response. And I'm grateful for Supervisor Carzo and for our colleagues for stepping up in this circumstance and fulfilling their duty to the residents of the county.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. I've been an elected official for nearly 7 years, served on a school board for 5 years. I've never seen anything like this. And it's deeply concerning when we're talking about the highest ranking law enforcement official in our county and the power that they wield.
Hi, over here. After hearing so many members of the public speak in support of independent oversight, do both of you now support that approach that might have helped in this situation?
I will speak for myself. I do and have always supported strong independent oversight. When we voted on that last year, I believe, or earlier this year, when the sheriff said that she needed more time before she had that additional layer of oversight over her office and her work, I believed her. And I didn't push as hard. But I do think it's necessary. And while I'm not sure that I would support a full-time inspector general, I do support the board exploring and considering um, having an inspector general when needed.
Well, I think our current process today is working. We appointed an independent investigator, and the board has actually shown the willingness to act in an appropriate manner. The question of whether or not to expand on whether or not we need an independent investigator further than that is something that the board is going to be taking up because there are two members who want to discuss it. And at that time, I think it's going to be an interesting policy discussion to go ahead and look at the current process and whether or not it would have made a difference. I think the board has acted swiftly in this circumstance, responsibly. We certainly had an impeccable independent investigator come into this and provide a 400-page report. So I'm not sure how much different the process would have been if it had been somehow procedurally different.
And just a unrelated question for Supervisor Mueller. The COSIDE division in your district has a new captain who was appointed by the sheriff under circumstances that are addressed a bit in the report. Do you have any concerns about leadership in the COSIDE or any message to COSIDE residents about their safety going forward?
I support every officer in the field. I think that's really important right now, and I do not believe in guilt by association.
So because this is an elected position, the only way that she could be removed from office is either her resignation, a recall, or the amendment to the charter. Is that correct? And you said with just cause with the charter. What else needs to be done to find just cause? Or do you think you have that just cause now if the charter was amended?
I just wanted to say that there is a fourth way, and that is something that we began action on, but a grand jury could remove Sheriff Corpus from office. That frankly takes a long time. I'll let Supervisor Mueller answer the rest of that question.
I think we're pretty close to the threshold right now in order to remove under a charter amendment. We have allegations certainly that have come forward that meet a criminality standard that need to be investigated by the district attorney. We certainly have allegations going forward that have to do with her not fulfilling her duties that are going before the grand jury. I think we're there. And it's also important to note, and I hope people do look at the exhibits. Some of those experts, some of those witnesses who the sheriff has questioned have actually provided affidavits under oath that I think will stand up. So I think we're very close to being there, but there is a process that we will need to go through, and I don't want to shortcut that process. I do believe in due process. But at the outset, we need to make sure that we are provided the tools to take the ultimate action at the appropriate moment.
In the meantime, I just talked to some deputies outside who are saying that when they walk out of here, they're really afraid of retaliation until she's removed from office. What would you tell the deputies that are still on board and that are trying to see this process through?
Unfortunately, that's a story that we've heard for some time, and we are doing everything in our power to support them.
I'll just add that it breaks my heart to know that sworn and administrative staff are still dealing with the impacts of our current leadership in the sheriff's office on a daily basis. And we are doing every single thing that we can and actively looking for ways to do more to protect anyone that is, um, you know, dealing with fear of intimidation, retaliation, etc.
There's one last point I'd like to make that I haven't had an opportunity to yet with respect to the arrest of Mr. Tapia. Yesterday in the press conference, the sheriff had to announce the arrest of Mr. Tapia, which itself is unusual. The sheriff made a point of saying that both the county executive, everyone knows the county executive and I have been meeting with Mr. Tapia in closed door meetings, and that we needed to get on the right side of the law. First off, I want everyone to know that is a complete fabrication, an absolute and complete fabrication. But secondly, what I would ask everyone to consider is why in a press conference that the sheriff is having announcing the arrest of Mr. Tapia, she is talking about about alleged fabricated political meetings that Mr. Tapia is having with me and Mr. Callagay. If that is not an example of retaliation to strike fear in the hearts of other members of the sheriff's office, I do not know what else is. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. A link and a video to the conference, the session earlier today and this evening will be on our county webpage. And I encourage anyone who has further questions or would like to schedule interviews with the supervisors to contact our communications manager, Michelle Duran. Thank you, and have a good evening.